Works of Love is a Rosecraft production. This is Works of Love, the podcast. I'm Julian Silver. Works of Love is a meditation on a theme through listener-submitted personal essays. That theme, love, the possession of and lack of it. Hello and welcome to Works of Love. I'm Julian Silver. In lieu of our usual essay, we have Annika Hansen, a film composer. You may have heard her work from the French film The Disposable Girlfriend, and she is also a
La copine.
No matter who you are always you. I think that is
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So thank you very much, my guest, my sister. She is also a serial accidental trans activist.
Which means it keeps happening, and I wish that it wouldn't, but it does.
Coraline would tell me some stories about just how
You've got a lot of pictures of her. I guess it's like a TV stereotype saying it's either you have photos everywhere because you're stuck in the past, or you have no photos anywhere because it's too traumatic or something. Yeah. Do you remember Wargs of Love? Our Halloween thing?
Oh.
Right after she started this?
When you guys were the werewolves?
It wasn't werewolves, goddammit.
You guys looked like werewolves.
We were wargs. We were wargs.
Yeah, you made that same chant.
God. Except it was present tense. We were wargs of love.
Yeah, that was your thing, right? You mispronounced it.
It was because it was originally because I just couldn't say it right, and I just kept forgetting what it was. But then she made fun of me.
It's so funny. I was thinking about it recently. It's like I wish there were a lot of different reasons that I wish Coraline were still here, but I know that she would have loved it for you to move back to the Northwest and us two to be here and all three of us being together. I was actually, but when because when you came home, that's when you told all of us that, you had always been Annika, right? And
this is a lot of what really is helpful about having a friend around who gets you already, because they do so much of the kind of heavy lifting. You don't have to sit there and have this awkward conversation about here are my pronouns. Do you talk about your pronouns when people don't? When people, you gotta drag them there or something sometimes, or they feel like fighting about it.
Right.
But if you have someone there who already clearly knows you, right, and who's on your side, in some sense, and is just referring to you a certain way.
Julius was never who you were, right?
Right.
And I was like, okay.
So you know, I don't know if you know this. But and it's also not really true for me. For most trans people, the old name, I call it an old name. Yeah. But for most trans people, the old name is called the dead name, and you never speak it. Just so you know. Okay. Generally speaking, for me personally, I'm, I was a girl named Julia. I mean, now I've inhabited this long enough that I get it. But it's part of the thing. Why for me personally. I never quite I think because I don't experience the kind of abuse in the same way. I don't grow up in a household where I'm openly defiantly trans and I'm my name is Annika, and my parents are no, Julius. I don't have that, right? So for a lot of trans people, there's that version of that experience where it is a device that's used to punish them, right, rather than just a sort of ill-fitting piece of clothing.
There was a weird memory I have, and I'm trying to see if you remember it. We went to, I think, Olympia. Yeah, it was in Olympia. We went to Olympia, and we went to a club, I think. It wasn't a club, but it was a club. It was one of those mixes.
It was a club, but in Olympia.
And so we go in, and so we're all on the balcony looking down, and I'm noticing the people dancing, and I turn to you guys, and I say, there's a lot of men dancing with men and a lot of women dancing with women. Are we in a gay bar or a gay club? And I remember you and her looked at me like I was the stupidest person, because I might have been at that moment. And you said, yeah, look behind you. And I turned around and there was a pride flag right behind my head. Oh yeah, and then also the hand stamps I think were unicorns. And it was so weird because you and Coraline synchronized showing, the hand stamps to me. And I was like, oh, am I that dumb? But then I was thinking about it. It isn't that I'm that dumb. It's okay.
Wait. How can I back out of this?
No. I'm gonna talk about something some benefit that I have that a lot of other people don't, which is I can be ignorant to my surroundings because I'm a cis het man, right?
That's true.
Like if I park and it's a dark alleyway, I don't have to be cognizant of everything. I can just oh, there's my car, go to the car. I have a different awareness level at all times because just the way that I am as compared to what you and Coraline and women by and large have to deal with.
Well, I mean, there's what the role sort of prescribes or defines, but then there's also just sort of your nature. I'm usually the one to miss all the obvious stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one running around with my phone for half an hour, looking stuff up on it while I frantically, chatting people on my phone, where I can't find my phone, right? So certainly I miss plenty of stuff, right? But there's also this sense of not doing the work of trying to pretend to be a guy anymore. I mean, my experience of trying to pretend to be a guy is sort of I can't. There's got to be a sci-fi movie there's something where someone who's just it's like a dog trying to pilot a one of these giant robots or something, right? It's it's wrong on 4 levels. Nothing makes sense. The creature inside doesn't understand how to even make the thing do anything. It's so funny how obviously physically coded this stuff is. How oriented around genitals it is. It's girls carry purses so that you can visually identify from any distance that the person who's got a giant bag is the person who's got this pocket in their body. Right? It's an external visual cue. And if you don't put pockets in their clothes, they've got to carry it more often. There's just this role-based stuff of men go out and explore and conquer and run wild and free and blah blah blah, and women stay at home inside and internal and all. It's very projected and presumptuous around these kinds of structures. But what it means is that increasingly, if you're brought up to be a boy, even if they're hey, help out around the house, you kind of are given this conflicting constant buzz in the background that the culture is saying that it's not very manly to do that, dude. Do you know what I mean? This dull roar. And there's a whole laundry list of shit that is just basic human behavior that is cut out of this, right? It's not very manly to experience most of your emotions, dude. So don't. And it ends up meaning that all the senses that you need to have available to you to be able to care about what's really happening right here at home, right immediately around you. What is the cost of your ambition kind of stuff, right? Your great projects, you're going out and conquering in a manly way thing. Those abilities are all atrophied. Those senses are all taught into nothingness.
I should have mentioned up top that you were the very first guest for Works of Love.
Way back when.
Do you remember what you talked about, what your love was?
I'm going to say that I don't, and that way I can just avoid all the parts that you don't remember.
So what you talked about loving was yourself. And it was because I think you were fairly new to being able to be yourself, without having to pilot that weird machine, right? And I was listening to it, and I was thinking what it must have been like with you and Coraline back in the day. And you mentioned it briefly about how you were so fortunate to have somebody who immediately bought in so that she could kind of act as a guide to other people about how to interact with you.
It ends up being this passive thing. It's like the name thing, right? It's a loud, clear signal who this person is.
Right. I've been trying to figure out something, which is I don't know if you know. I'm sorry, we didn't talk I mean, I gave you the news when Coraline fell ill and passed. I never got to really talk to you about like how you experienced it because I was, lost in my own grief. It's like if I had called you up, like what could I have possibly have said to like make anything better for you, right?
That's the point. That's the point right there. Is that's not the point.
Wait, the point is that it isn't the point?
The point is, it's role construction. Look at what you just said. Like, what could I say to make it better? It's not about what you say to make it better. It's that you're there. That makes it better. That's how it works.
But like, okay, who did you? But who did you turn to? Right? Like, I wasn't your first thought, right?
It's because guys are taught that emotions aren't real. So I reach out to. I mean, it's practice, right? It's the same thing. It's connection atrophies from this end too. Right? I don't reach out to guys in my life for emotional support. They don't know how to do it.
Yeah, I've been seeing a therapist. I know that you told me that I should go see a therapist a long, long time ago, and I was like, oh, that's just an older sister.
I said you should let a therapist see you. Let me be clear.
And so I recently started seeing one. She said that I don't experience emotions. I experience the experience of emotions.
For those of you unable to see me at home, my head just cocked like the RCA dog, because I also do not understand yet.
I think what she was saying was that if you expose me to something emotional or something that should, by rights, make me emotional, I won't really have a reaction, because my first thought is like, okay, what are the bases that need to be covered, right? Because immediately, as soon as she passed, my immediate thoughts were, how can I be useful here, right? And so the way that I could be useful is I could get her plot, and I could notify everybody that was important to her, and take care of the things that nobody wants to take care of when they lose someone that they love. When my therapist would ask me, like, how are you feeling? I wouldn't talk about the feeling. I would talk about the actions that I was taking, right? And so the only thing that I could reflect back to her, like, emotionally, was like, it hurts to see so many people so sad, right?
Wow. How recent is this? The conversation with the therapist, I mean?
Oh, it was about a month ago.
Interesting.
Why?
Not to project too hard, but it feels role construction stuff. Honestly, of course I see this kind of, maybe I'm overly sensitive to it, right? But I see this everywhere. I feel like a lot of how guys are constructed to not practice feeling their emotions is that they're taught that whenever anything happens, not that this is not sort of a big deal or crisis type of situation or sort of an unusual thing, but kind of that when anything happens, that it's this mode, right? It's like, get, next step, do the next thing, be useful thing. And it's always this external work. It's the kind of stuff I was talking about a little bit earlier, that it is more masculine to do this external stuff, to not think about internal stuff at all till all the external stuff is tended. But there's always external stuff. There's always internal stuff too, it turns out. But it's like war footing, right? It's like your whole life turns into, there will be a time to mourn these losses, but it is not this time. There will be a day to, but we're not at war. And yet we have in our society roughly half of the people being taught to just sort of constantly behave as if we are. It's the World War II model, just like playing out forever. That we have someone at home kind of taking care of stuff, and there's sort of a soldier out fighting kind of thing, right? Where we go to convenience stores to get, we would call these rations if we were paying attention. Who's the convenience for? It's not for me. It's to speed up the part of your life that you would ordinarily be living. But it's part of the role to stay busy out in the world, right? To slow down and examine yourself more. That's kind of feminine. It's a little too soft.
Yeah, I can see that.
Constantly problem solve. This is an interpersonal problem relationship too. You know what women are saying constantly? I wish he would just listen. I try to tell him how I feel, and he says, well, you shouldn't feel that because of this, or, baby, I can do blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, just give me a hug. Like, be a human being for 6 seconds. Stop being a man and be a human being. And hold me while I cry because I need to just feel that someone's here with me. But they're not taught to do that. It's not part of the role. It's to solve the problems out in the world, right? Not the emotional ones are sort of, for men, constructed to not really exist or be women's domain. Like, guys are brutalized into this horribly. Like, if you do not constantly prove to enough that you're a guy, just, how you dress, how you are, any of this kind of stuff. If you don't constantly demonstrate it enough, you're going to get corrected. And it's going to be violent. And so there's a lot of guys who are just like, not really guys, but they're just kind of like, sure, I'll just, I dress like this and whatever. And it's not that they're girls or anything like that. It's just that they're not that. They're not that role. Do you remember, fuck, what is his name? Ram? Cork's brother? The Ferengi.
Yes,
the Ferengi who can't really be a Ferengi.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
I feel like most of Ferengi are really like that. In the way that I feel like most guys trying to play this hard charging, bar owning, like money, I want to say swilling. I'll go with that. Money swilling, whatever. That they don't feel like that. But I've got an entire structure around them that says if you got to be that, and if you're not that, you're nothing. Right? Which is why you get a lot of these guys who are like, very violent, very loudly homophobic, scientifically speaking, generally are pretty gay. Right? They're compensating for this actual facet of themselves. This is science on this. Did you not read about this?
No. It reminds me of like this memory that I have of the two of us.
You realize that when you say that, I'm sitting here thinking about the science of this, and the science of this is, they're like watching these guys' reactions to porn, and like they've got stuff hooked up to measure blood flow to their genitals and stuff, and you're like, this reminds me of a memory of the two of us, and I'm like, all right.
Okay, okay, let's see if you remember this. Like, there was
He's just gonna keep going.
Just
I mean, to be fair, where else could you go than just, let's move ahead from that?
No, just follow me here, okay?
I'm doing my best.
Follow me. There was a time when you wanted to watch, I forget what it was you wanted to watch, but I didn't want to watch it, right? And you were my older sister, and I got really angry because I kept on trying to get the remote so that I could watch, I think it was like Real Monsters or something. And so you just kept denying it to me. And so like I walked away and I said, I would never say this now, but I said, I called you a bundle of sticks.
And then you got your ass beat. This is before, though.
Yeah, this was before
this is everybody thinks I'm your big brother.
And so you just, you beat the hell out of me for it, So, yeah, it just makes me, like, was that...
You know what that feels like on the inside? Here's what it is you can picture the upside down dog trying to drive the tank. Mm-hmm. There's a proximity alarm. Mm-hmm. And the dog is just frantically just mashing shit inside there. Her little paws are going crazy. She's peeing on herself, right? Mm-hmm. But the machine is just like, it's the end of Iron Giant, right? Come beat the hell out of you for because it's a threat. Mm-hmm. Right? It's early enough. I understand if I'm outed, because I'm not gay. Well, I'm pretty gay. But in that sense, right? If I understand on some level that if people know I'm a girl, like, I'm done for. Because my kind of girl doesn't exist. Right? Which means if you call me anything other than what I'm constructed to be, people might realize that you're right, even if it's not that. They might realize that I'm not what I'm constructed to be. Mm-hmm. They might start looking closer. So I better make sure I put on a good show, right? This is also nonsense, because the roles are all nonsense. The roles are all just an idea of how someone ought to be. But if it conflicts with how I actually am, it doesn't mean that I'm... For example, I can't think of a specific thing, but if there's something that I do that is not constructed as traditionally feminine or not ladylike or whatever, not like a girl, and someone says, that's not very ladylike, meaning it is not the thing that a lady would do. Well, I'm a lady and I just did it. So the definition of ladylike has expanded. It's not the other way around, because it's a description of what's really there and not a prescription of how it must be.
So now that I finally have you here, so there was a trip that you and Coraline took in 2003, right before we both moved to Seattle to start our master's program, right? And she just said, I want to have one last crazy night with Annika. And she goes, the only thing that I ask of you is that you don't ask me what happens. And, I was head over heels and still am head over heels over Coraline. And I made the promise that I wouldn't ask her, even though you know that I'm a journalist and it is my nature to ask questions. But now that you're here, I didn't agree not to ask you the question.
Mm-hmm.
What happened in 2003?
Wow.
No, I'm sorry. That wasn't 2003. That was 2001. My bad. 2003 is when...
I'm going to answer your original question.
2003 was when... Oh. 2003 was when
2003 was a good year.
2003 is when I interviewed Kofi Annan.
Oh, God damn it.
Mm-hmm. You love it.
It was the spring. There it sat on the shelves of every Borders bookstore, which still existed, for it was 2000.
I guess more than anything.
I'm just beaming over here because it's funny to me.
More than anything, I guess I just want to ask, was it an unforgettable night?
No, of course.
Then I'm glad that she had it. Yeah, I just keep... Yeah, Do you want to go see her after this? Just go to the...
Hey Google, what's the... Oh, you don't have the thing.
I don't have the thing.
I was going to say, what's the weather? I'll say this. I feel like she's not going anywhere. I'm not in a rush.
You know what?
I also I don't feel like I need to go somewhere to see her, if that makes sense.
You know what I realized? Like the first episode of this show that ever went up, you were talking about how much you loved yourself, and then the time that you're back,
it wasn't that I loved this is why I didn't want to talk about it. It's not that I loved myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's that I loved that I was able to be myself and just get to know who I was at all in the first place. It's that I loved that I didn't have to keep trying to be something.
Right.
And it's funny because I was, like I just talked about, like I'm still trying to, I was at the time trying to like be a girl, like I was trying to like learn the role in a way.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a kind of a good journey and start off on you loving the idea of exploring or being able to explore you, right? Mm-hmm. And now we get to have you back on and we get to talk about, the woman that we both loved, right?
Yeah.
So I know that you don't listen.
Is this a general comment?
But we usually end the episode by telling the listeners we wish them something that was in the essay. I figured for your reappearance, we should actually give it to you. What would you like to wish the listeners?
Oh, gosh. Wow, I'm really I can hear the clock ticking and everything. What would I wish for them? If there's something I would like for people listening, it is for them to really be where they are and really be aware of who is there with them. Like, it's not this heavy mournful thing. It's just recognizing that that's what we wish we would have done more when we can't anymore.
I think that's a good wish. Well, thank you for being on the show, Annika. It was good to see you again.
Thank you for having me. Maybe I should have said this at the top, but people usually just call me Nika. Actually, Annika is more of it's like my resume. And my professional, it's like Annika Hansen.
Well, that's interesting.
Composer. But like this kind of happened. I don't know. Gradually, that just people in my closer spheres generally call me Nika.
Really? Yeah, because this is the first time I think you've told me to call you Nika.
I've come home.
Well, for Nika and for Julian, this has been Works of Love.
Be safe.
Today's episode of Works of Love was written and performed by Elliot Rose and Seranine Elliott. Seranine is a community-supported autistic transgender artist. Get to know her at seranine.com. That's seranine.com. Or support her on Patreon at linguisticautistic.com. Also, Seranine has recently released her debut album, Signs of a Struggle, available on bandcamp.com. It is only $7, but worth so much more. Please consider buying it at seranine.bandcamp.com. Music by Ross Bugden, licensed through Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License. To find more of Ross's music, go to soundcloud.com/rossbugden. If you have any thoughts about today's essay, please feel free to reach out to us on Twitter. We're at Works of Love Pod, by email at worksoflovepodcast@gmail.com, or go to our website at wolpod.com. Also, we're having a contest. If you like the show and you want to support us, please leave an iTunes review. You will be automatically entered to win a copy of Zen Pencils, Cartoon Quotes from Inspirational Folks by Gavin Ong Tan. The winners will be announced during episode 11. This has been Works of Love. Thank you for listening.